Nada entra en mi cuerpo, todo lo cruzo. Nada entra en mi cuerpo, todo lo cruzo. Nadie me conoce. Era tan comunista que en la guerra civil continuamente perseguía a todo aquel que oliese revolucionario. Era tan comunista que terminada la contienda huía a calzón quitao a tomar el primer avión. Era tan comunista. Era tan comunista que obliga a reintegrarse al sindicato vertical del franquismo. Era tan comunista que obliga a su base estudiantil a reintegrarse en el seu gremio de la falange. Era tan comunista que en la Francia de Gaulle su figura lucía en coche descapotable.
Hello. Hi. Good afternoon. Buenas tardes. Welcome to the third day of the 17th and last festival, Themos 98. Not to say that again, but I did it. We are very happy to be here presenting 2 case studies that are relating to the commons. But before that, I would like to thank you to the theater that is welcoming us, el Teatro Duque La Imperdible, for the second day. And I would also thank you, I would also like to thank you, Nuria Rodriguez and Estaco Troncoso, because they are gonna work a lot today. So a big applause to them. And I would like also another applause to Teodor Celakoski and Claire Tolan, who are going to present the 2 case studies. You can sit down in these beautiful civilian chairs. Okay, the first one is Right to the City. That's what Teodor is going to present us. And it's the struggle over public space in Zagreb and the construction of a common platform created a starting point for an urban process to reclaim the commons. Over the last years, Right to the City has undertaken a number of protest actions, raising the public awareness about failing and corrupt urban development, and planning policies of public authorities in the city of Zagreb. He's as one of the key initiators of many bottom-up mobilizations. They believe, their collective, that culture around the issue of a cultural center is a kind of a playground or laboratory that can be created where certain social practices that generate a new institutional practices and a new model for managing the common goods, public goods. And Teodor will explain us the tools and tactical networking methods that they have used in the campaign against the privatization of highways. And he's also part of a network. It's called Network Program that is funded by the ECF. And they're basically working in issues related to the commons and also of co-governance practices. So please welcome Teodor.
I have thank you. So I'll try something what is maybe not possible at all, but I'll try to pass like 6 years of activities that were starting point for what we can call in Croatia now a commons movement around different issues like urban space, highways, and education system, and so on. So the reason why I decided to go through these early days of our work was the name of the festival, because you have a kind of focus to the caring for the city. So I want to show how fruitful the activities around the city and confronting certain developments in the city were for further developments and widening our attention and efforts around other commons. So, so Right to the City, Croatian name for this is Pravo na grad. The starting point of our activities was, let's say, a regular type of activities around asking for spaces for work for non-institutional culture scene in Zagreb and youth organization in Zagreb. Because in Zagreb there is, at that time, there was no spaces, public spaces that were run by these type of organizations. and that were kind of institutional and infrastructural base for different type of activities. So we started to campaign around this issue. So we focused on some existing facilities that were abandoned during the process of transition. And as you know, in the socialistic period, we had a lot of production resources and infrastructure in the middle of the towns. So this was part of the concept of development. So nowadays, these resources are mainly abandoned in Croatia. And as we were traveling a lot and collaborating a lot, we recognized that the Zagreb should have also this type of resources like in other European countries where this type of social, cultural, social centers are using this type of infrastructure. So we started to campaign around this specific location, but the result of this endeavor was having a massive mobilization of the cultural organizations and having a Operation City Festival with more than 15,000 audience during this event that lasted more than 10 days. But as a result of this process, the whole festival took place at this location. As a result of this process was that instead of this was one art piece, instead of moving into direction of culture center, the city of Zagreb decided to temporarily use it for some kind of small businesses, basically reselling different stuff. So this is the same room. So you see how successful we were at that time, in our effort, because this is nowadays the space. So, but these were early days, and we recognize that the problem is not only that we can't get the infrastructure for activities of independent culture scene and youth organizations, but that there is a problem with the whole bunch of resources that are waiting to be consumed by the real estate and construction speculation. And we started to campaign against our mayor. So we used one occasion when his ID card was used to promotion of one festival, youth festival. So we started to campaign against it with crossing it or making a new billboards with this. And at that time, our populistic mayor was like untouchable political figure, but now he is in jail. Not because of these developments, but also because of manipulation and speculation around real estate businesses. So we gathered the campaign. That was this specific location. We wanted to be renovated. But as we realized that this is not only our problem, so we went into campaigning around this issue of all these resources waiting for certain investors. So at that time, 2006, and real center of Zagreb, in near center of Zagreb, one developer decided to build a shopping mall. And it was like a 100 million euro investment. And we, on the place of one such factory. So we started to campaign and presented the whole process in the city as a total resale. Totalna rasprodaja means total resale. Zagreb Ltd means that the city turns into direction of governing with it as with company. So we presented different locations that are under threat of going in that direction. And we had a kind of resources to make a huge campaign around this with billboards, and then we made a huge banner presented a few slides before. One of the main characteristics of these activities were that we do a lot of stuff in a voluntary basis. Although a lot of money, you will see through these activities, is needed to run these type of campaigns. But most of the work is voluntary organized. So this is the first press conference where we started the campaign around this shopping mall investment plan. And what is important is to explain how the building of the coalition functions. On this picture, you can see different people from different organizations, different backgrounds. This is like this was like a huge coalition involving youth network organizations, then the huge transparency NGO, then Green Action, that is the biggest NGO dealing with the environment. Urbanists, architects working on the issues of urban development and so on. So this is, we might say that this is one of the core characteristic of what we've been developing last 10 years now. And this is, we call this like explanation of what is it, a tactical networking, or building the tactical platforms. That means, or that has a certain characteristic. This is not kind of normative term, but it is kind of, we draw this from the experience of organizing stuff. So basic characteristic of it is that you have alliances on the building this platform that are coming from different background, different kind of cross-sectorial logic of, if in case of NGOs, or different type of citizens initiatives, so that there is no, let's say, kind of common political or ideological or methodological kind of understanding or background of these platforms. So these are new, let's say, new type of political entities that are based on not like a consortium, on a project based, or as let's say ad hoc coalitions where you fight for a certain period of time, but something what is at least at the medium term activities. This is one of the basic characteristics also is that it is highly political or have a strong policy agenda. So it is very specific. So it's not like, you know, like you are fighting against the system and you're using different occasions to do this. But it is meant to be a real tool for changing specific dynamics in the society or in development. And what is the most important thing is it is not methodologically, it is not any type of fetish, making any type of fetishism around how we should do things. So we have a very complicated structure of councils, urbanistic council, huge activist group who decides on all the actions. A lot of direct democratic tools, but we had also 2,000 people who were involved through our communication service who wanted to participate in protests that we organized. So we wanted to involve citizens in the process in a way that it's best fitting to them. There was also a group of people combining from different organizations and initiatives in there. that were really, let's say, like a 24-hour day working on this, working on the campaign. So we wanted to have appropriate involvement of different stakeholders, actors, citizens on a layer that, on a level that it's most appropriate for each of them to work. So 2007 we started to run the campaign. We collected 55,000 signatures in the city of 700,000 inhabitants. It was really successful. People were staying in queues to sign. The problem with the shopping mall was it was kind of precedent for a type of behavior. Until that time, it was not possible in Croatia. It was not possible in Croatia to build the entrance into your garage, because the shopping mall, it was planned to have a huge garage. The whole idea behind this was to block the process of ruining and taking the public space for this type of private investments. In Croatia, it was not possible to have like entrance into garage from the public, like a ramp, you know, like you had to go into the garage. You couldn't have this on the public square or public street. And this was the first occasion where they tried to go into that direction, where they want to build this ramp on a public in a pedestrian zone. So this was the crucial point where we were fighting against. They want to turn apart two historic buildings. They want to build two big parking garage, and this was the reason why we was confronting this specific project. So a lot of campaigning involving a lot of people on different scale. I just will shortly pass through this because there are a lot of pictures. So we also do like reclaiming the street type of actions, like blocking the street, asking to have a pedestrian zone here. This was kind of confrontational towards that they want to take already existing pedestrian zone. So we also planned their further activities of blocking. So the next step was to collect all these signatures, because people were signing also postcards for the mayor. So we used all these postcards and we surrounded the block where the shopping mall was planned to build. One of the tactics of our work was to make a wider public aware of the size of confrontation or of the size of the project. So a lot of visualization in space where we were practicing. So like, you know, people usually don't know what is 10 million euros because they never have this money in their pocket. So they don't know what is 50,000 people, apart from being in concert or protest where they calculate, where it is calculated by some other authority or whatever. So we wanted to present these different aspects of the confrontation or the project or the problem of itself. So it is 4 times 100 meters block. So that was like all of these postcards have a signature of people. So then we rewrite some old protest song. We renamed the street after the victims of Milan Bandic. Milan Bandic is a mayor, and we collected a lot of different local initiatives where the space was the issue of confrontation. A lot of public figures were involved in the protest, like actors, art historians. We do the visualization how big will be the intervention in the pedestrian zone. This is the first protest. We had like more than 4,000 people. We expected less than 2,000. And the letters says give up. So this was huge success. Then we went to the ministry where we complained and they didn't react, so we said that this is crime scene also. So then we blocked through walking only through pedestrian field. We blocked local city council. Then we presented the one survey where only 8% of people were for the project. This was independently done survey. So this is like, and parallelly to this, we started to work on other issues of spatial devastation. And we have here an interesting case where the biggest tycoon in Croatia were doing using the renovation of historian site, one protected building. He got permit to use it for the public use. So only for the public use. So they said we will have a hotel there. So, but they use it as a private, totally private property, close to any public. So we started to campaign around this because this was the wider issue around the problem of space and these green zones around the city. So we came with like a tourists with the buses asking to enter the hotel, and then of course because it is not a hotel, but they played the game and they said, okay, it is hotel, but it is still under the kind of process of formal recognition or whatever, you know, like categorization and stuff like that. So they played the game further, but it was a huge, massive kind of media attention to this type of action and other actions that we organized, because media came to this even though they didn't know where they will go with us, with the buses, because they know that we will organize something what is, you know, interesting from this media standpoint. And this is kind of one of the tactics that we used, and this is in a way compromising and pushing things that media can buy, and then you sell also certain some ideas around this. So, but then we started to campaign. Like we gathered all the facts around of political corruption, construction, different construction frauds, mismanagement of institutions, everything what was published in the different media. We collected in one site, and we organized the promotion campaign, Mutna, that is muddy water. So we organized this as a kind of marketing event. So we also organized, you know, the whole campaign, and also people could choose what is the worst. And then we had a billboard campaign before the election, collecting all this money that is in question. And like we said, okay, you have to go to vote against this process, against this personalization of this process that is our mayor. In 2 days, everything disappeared. So this is this type of control. We paid it like 10,000 euros. It was the whole city and the company said, take your money back. We will give you one more campaign, but no political campaign anymore. So it was kind of a really frustrating thing. Then we organized simulation of starting of works. I'm not sure who is making this. Okay. Thanks. So we pretended like we are starting the works there. Then the work really started, and we blocked it. We had a total surveillance over this space, 24 hours and stuff like that. And then we planted 2 containers here, and we organized the citizens to come and to protect the pedestrian zone together with us. Then we organized a huge protest. Ne damo Varšavska mean we don't give Varšavska is the name of the street, Varšavska. We built this huge Trojan horse. The idea was to explain that the project and the mayor are the kind of Trojan horse of certain development in the city of Zagreb. It was again a few thousand people. They destroyed the horse this night, and then they arrested all the people sitting there. Then we came to protest with the citizens, like we were making complaint because the ministry didn't react for 2 years on our demand for inspection over the process in the city of Zagreb. Like in a 15 hours period, we sent only SMSs to the people, and 700 people came to this action early morning at 8 o'clock. Then we go in front of the state attorney, and we demand for cleaning of the toilet called Zagreb. And we again have we rewrite one rock popular song, and then they put the fans there. They started again. We invited people to bump on the fence in order to invite them tomorrow to come to the protest, but it went everything into kind of escalation. The security was pushing too much against us, so we used this force and we overthrew the fence, and the occupation started. We've been there for like something like more than 1 month, with a lot of people involved in taking care of the street, a lot of programming, famous Croatian bands were playing there. Then we went with suitcases to say to the mayor, Remetinac is a prison. We said, okay, you should go to prison. Here is, everything what you need for the prison. And then again, a few weeks after, they started again the works, but prepared with like 50 cars and a lot of police. 150 people were peacefully protesting and blocking, were arrested. This is our prime minister, then the leader of the opposition. This was the protest in front of they were in charge for the city of Zagreb. So we protested in front of this party, and again in front of in that time ruling party. So it was kind of a few days of constant protests and blocking things. We did this with the Ministry of Construction because we want to explain that this is because they were doing this to the citizens in the block who were living, who lived there. They just fenced their balconies and windows. So we did it on the entrance of the ministry, the same thing. And then we did this ceremony this is a flag of the city of Zagreb. This is a coffin of public interest. So this is so they succeed in their attempt. So we just wanted to demonstrate that it is, like we are still fighting against this. After we were sure that we are losing the fight, and we were fighting for next 3 years. The whole campaign lasted more than 5 years. but after we realized that we will lose, we continued to campaigning because of other aspects of this. We want to popularize the idea of the political public space, because they were trying discursively to explain that the public space in the shopping malls are also public spaces. So, and as you know, they are totally controlled by the private security companies or management of these type of business entities. On the other side, you really can't take picture or make film or make speech, not to say to organize protests. So it is kind of very kind of controlled space. So we were fighting also for the notion of what is public space. And we consider this that it is a politically public space. That means that it is free for everyone to organize and to do with as little as it is possible control over it. We know that it is still more and more controlled by the state also, but the private control is even worse than state control. In our cases, I would say. So this is the opening of the center, and we again we closed the whole thing with. We started with total sale, and we closed it with a total fraud. So to the right is this new building, and at the opening we had a huge protest, and we couldn't enter because of the special police. But people individually entered there, and then what we said that it is the crucial aspect of the privatized hybrid type of public spaces is that there is a control over private entities' control over the space resource, and exactly this happened at the opening. So they. The security guard started because people were doing like with cigarettes. They did with how to say this? They broke the balloons, you know, and then they jump and starting to fight, and then the special police helped them to beat people. So that's kind of overall picture of development around one specific issue. You can see that we lost at the end the fight around the shopping mall, but there was certain successes, and I will conclude with this, that were result of this process. Because we were very young in terms of political awareness around the organization of wider movement. And we were successful in, firstly to say, we were successful in downsizing the project itself. So it is something more than a half of the project they planned. And this was because of the campaign. The project itself failed because it is not a successful business thing. We prolonged for 5 years the whole investment, and it entered into the phase of the crisis, and there is no real shopping there now, and it is kind of a good example what is happening when you don't organize city planning in a better way. So it is. We proved here that this is a risk to do this solo type of agreements between the local authorities, corrupt authorities, and private developers. The problem was here that this was money laundering, so they don't care because because it's not earning money, because it was money laundering. I was brought to court, and it lasted for almost 2 years, the court, because I said this publicly on a press conference. And we have information about which money, from which group, how, and stuff like that. But I was 2 years, and then the investor abandoned the sue, the whole thing. So it was like a pressure of exhausting you, and having pressure of or risk of getting fines that are very huge in these occasions. So we were successful regarding the project, and we don't explain this a lot, because we see also this as wider public, that this is a fail. But what we achieved is that we were successful in changing a master plan that was organized in order to have this type of projects. So we achieved systematic change, because there was idea of putting this type of business investments into 20 of the blocks of in the cores of city. So we were successful in changing the master plan prepared for this project, and that could serve for next 20 projects in the center of town. So that was a kind of systematic success. There was also one important thing, that after these events and campaign, the special issues starting to be of a highly political and social importance in the society in Croatia, and a lot of other initiatives with our help started from this point. So in Dubrovnik, there was a huge campaign against the €1 billion investments of Israeli weapon trader investment in Dubrovnik. This was like several hundred of apartments and villas wants to build, on the hill near Dubrovnik, where they can, I think, spit on or piss on Dubrovnik, So that's kind of a bizarre situations where our government in Croatia decided that the golf courses are the crucial developmental position in the touristic industry. So we started to fight against these processes, and it's ongoing fight. And because of the crisis, the money that wants to invest here is really dirty money, and it is kind of complicated. And what is interesting is that we started to function as a kind of strong political actors, and we were interested. We were interesting for unions also to collaborate with us. So it was interesting that huge federation of unions in Croatia recognizes us and other organizations from this coalition as a potential partner for different fights that are relevant for the wider public and the issue of commons. So, for instance, we organized a huge campaign on the ground of these achievements. 7 huge unions, and I'm finishing, 7 huge unions and 7 organizations, civil society organizations, organized huge campaign against the privatization of highways, giving to Goldman Sachs for 50 years, for 2 billion euros, the 1,000 kilometers of newly built highways. So we were successful in this, and we gathered 500,000 signatures in 2 weeks, with a huge campaign, media campaign, and campaign on a local level, with a lot of different initiatives and people involved in this. So it was kind of, the process is growing, and it's starting to be, yesterday, our government abandoned the plan to give highways into concession. So it was successful. So we have to think about our developments and our work and fights in a longer period of time and to see how we build on previous achievements.
Thank you very much. Now is Claire's turn. She's here as a representative of Tactical Tech. That is a non-profit organization working since 2003 to advance the use of information and digital technologies by advocates and activists worldwide. Based in Dublin, they work with an international network of partners and collaborators to help rights, accountability, transparency, advocates, and the community they work with to use information and digital technologies with efficiency in their work. They have 3 focal areas: understanding, shaping issues, digital security and privacy, and data politics. The story that Claire is going to present us today is about people who are newly empowered to uncover hidden information, expose corruption, and bring the truth to light. Through a series of short films, Exposing the Invisible will tell us stories of those working at the new frontiers of investigation related to land, organized crime, and other issues. We will explore their tools, methods, and learn how they manage the risk of information activism. So please welcome Claire.
Hi everyone, thanks for having me. I'm just gonna find my slides. Maybe. So I have some notes that I'm going to use a little bit. So like Nuria said, I'm Claire, and I'm a developer and sometimes archivist based in Berlin. And I'm here at Zemos very happily to represent both the Tactical Technology Collective and both the Tactical Technology Collective and a fledgling archive of human rights abuse documentation in the Syrian conflict, which I'm at the hack camp working on, and I'm happy to talk about either later tonight or tomorrow. But Tactical Tech is what I'm talking about right now, and they're an organization based in Berlin, like Nuria said, and they're working with advocacy groups, political activists, using information in their campaigning and managing their information. This includes everything from creating effective visual campaigns to thinking through digital security practices. And the program that I'm talking about tonight in particular, Exposing the Invisible, is part of this fold. All of our work, I think, can be thought of as being a part of the information commons. This is how to act as an empowered agent in the swell of information that's surrounding us and informing all of our interactions, both on and offline. So Exposing the Invisible is a program that began in 2013 with a series of 3 short films. And it's now expanding into kind of a larger program that's about methodology and curriculum creation as well as training. So, Exposing the Invisible. And what Exposing the Invisible is don't want to spoil the story. Okay. It's about citizen investigation, right? We like to say it's about new ways of seeing, understanding, and responding to the information that surrounds you. Like, so if you bring a critical mind and a new perspective to kind of the flow of information around us, what kind of interesting questions can we ask? And specifically, what can these questions tell us about power and abuses of power? We encourage methods that are low tech. You don't need tech skills to do this kind of investigation, and they're questions that can be asked by anyone, anywhere. As an organization, we call it open source investigation. So this is kind of a methodology that anyone can use. So as I said, Exposing the Invisible began as a series of 3 short films. The first one told the story of Paul Radu, who's an activist investigating organized crime through network mapping. And the third one interviews journalists, activists, academics, and artists dealing with drone warfare. It's called Unseen War. But tonight I'm going to talk about the second film called From My Point of View, which interviews 3 activists doing investigations in their homes and communities of the type that we would classify as fitting the program. And so in particular, I'm going to focus on one of those activists, Haggett, who is an Israeli activist living and working in Jerusalem, and working with Palestinian communities to protest against government housing demolition of Palestinian homes in East Jerusalem. And before I begin, I want to say that all of these films are available to stream and download online. They're all Creative Commons licensed, and you can find them at exposingtheinvisible.org. So I'm going to begin this by playing 2 short clips from the film. There's no sound with the video. Oh, wait, no, I don't want to. Let's see what's going on. That's probably not what I want to happen. I also don't have to play short clips. It's totally fine to skip them because you can watch all of the videos online, like I said. So I'll just summarize the... Ooh. Sorry. No, it's fine. Should we try to play it again? It's let me be. It's here.
So I think that was another phase in which I stopped going to demonstrations, and I started looking for new ways to do my own activism or engagement. I realized that what I really need to do is to examine my own society and examine the perpetrators to see how it works, how it happens, how they enforce the planning law, and how the mechanisms work in terms of house demolition.
Okay, so that was just kind of an introduction, and then there's another clip.
And then I got to know public laboratory and learn about the methods they developed to do it-yourself aerial photography. They used balloons and they used kites and they created these amazing visual, and it brought together photography and mapping in such a beautiful way. The first time I did it, it was obvious to me why it was both political and personally exciting. Succeeding to create these photographs from the sky and then sitting there and stitch them together in such a way that would create an objective image. So I wasn't thinking about whether it's legal or not legal. The first time where I thought about it is when I was about to put in risk other people. And I realized that very late, actually, but early enough to talk to the people that I was working with and tell them that I'm not willing to take this risk. And they were saying that, let's do it. And it was a lot of fun. I mean, the minute we took out the kite, and the kite is so big and red, and some other kids from the neighborhood just joined to the kids that we were working with, and there was hardly any wind, and that was the highest aerial photography that I did anywhere till today, because they were just getting crazy about it. Just let it go, let it go, let it go, and knowing that they control this relations between themselves, the wind and the string. It's just amazing to see it. When you are able to use this technology and take your photographs while you are on the ground and see things from above, you change the meaning of this power. The fact that Google is showing only low-resolution images of Israel is something that I realized by learning this process of creating this high-resolution aerial photography. With these technologies, this view can become a social practice that allows people to organize and work towards shared concern. I think this is the most important change that these kind of practices are bringing.
So that's Haggett. And I should say that all of the films are also available with Spanish subtitles that you can download to go along with them, as you saw. So as Haggett said, she's using kite mapping, working with these communities to kind of empower them in terms of feeling that they have a full view of their space. And she also uses techniques of getting information from public archives and stitching together these different narratives from different platforms, along with the communities in the hope of ending the government housing demolitions, which are currently unchecked and can happen at any time. So why investigate? Why do this? It's a question we could ask. And I think that one of the people interviewed in this film also says, if you don't understand it, then nothing happens. And I think this is really true. It's, it sounds a little bit cliche, but it's our community and it's up to us. And it's funny in that at Tactical Tech, one of the things that we do a lot of work with is advocacy for data privacy. But these investigations often flip this on its head and look for kind of cracks in the privacy of those who are in power in order to expose their abuses of power. And again, as I said, you don't need high-tech tools and you don't need extensive training. What you need is a perspective that allows you to ask the right questions. So the program began as these documentaries, and now it's kind of turning into training courses and methodology coaching. So when we start to think about that and we start to think about doing these investigations ourselves, we have to ask how we can make effective investigations. And one thing is, like, who's going to believe us and how do we know we're telling stories that people are listening to? And the way that we can start to think about doing this in a way that will have an impact is to make sure that the information that we're using is true and not false. In this kind of investigation, you're removed from any type of institution with like traditional authority. So it's really important to make sure that you back up all of your facts. And you can start to learn about this with the verification handbook, which is at this URL. The Exposing the Invisible website has a lot of resources like this that will teach you how to start thinking about investigation. And another huge consideration is security. This is not a not dangerous thing to do. You're investigating people with power who don't want to be investigated. And so you need to know, if you decide to do an investigation like this, that you're incurring a risk for yourself and also for people working with you, which is something that Haggett mentioned in this film. And at Tactical Tech, we talk in terms of this investigation about integrated security. And this means beginning any of your campaigns with the assumption that you're going to be successful. And if you're successful, then you're gonna need to protect yourself. So if you start covering your traces from the beginning, you won't have to run back when your campaign gets publicity and try to cover up who you are and what you're doing. Of course, digital security is like pretty overwhelming, right? It's not an easy thing to think about or to achieve, but Tactical Tech creates resources that maybe you will find helpful. We have a guide for activists called securityinabox.org, and also on the Exposing the Invisible website, there are a lot of security-related resources. So you can maybe begin like taking small steps, like protecting your passwords and using good passwords, and then start to think about more complicated things like email encryption. And it's also often very simple. It's like changing your Facebook privacy settings and paying attention to things like this. So there are a couple of examples of tools and investigations, because this kind of thing is necessary to have an investigation you want to launch if you're going to investigate. So one thing you can do is like kind of combine information about subjects you want to talk about from different social networks, right? So stitching together information across platforms to tell a story. There's a tool called Meltego, which is free online, which kind of does some of this work for you. I want to make sure I don't say the wrong thing about what it is. It's basically a network mapping tool. So it links powerful people together based upon public records. So it does some of the work for you, but you need to know what questions to ask it. And there's also a tool called littlesis.org, which takes this follow the money technique, where you trace purchase. It has this huge database of purchase records and other public records about people in power related to purchases, and you can kind of trace where the money is going. And archives and public records, of course, are wonderful resources, always. And I just want to say that these investigations are fine when they're done alone, but they're always better together, right? We don't all have the skills that are necessary for an effective investigation, and nor can we possibly have all of the expertise we might need. And one good example of this is the first interviewee in the second film, from my point of view, is Elliot Higgins, who runs the Bellingcat blog. And I don't know if you're familiar with his work, but he has been investigating the Syrian conflict on YouTube and is able to do like pretty incredible work just from YouTube videos in terms of tracing where different weapons are coming from and identifying like ISIS training locations. And this is all just based upon looking at different YouTube videos in combination. And in the second film, he talks quite a bit about how he often goes to experts to verify that his opinions are correct. And generally, I think people are happy to advise about this kind of thing. So keep it in mind that we're better together. And I actually think that is all that I have for tonight. So thank you for your attention and for having me. And again, I'm happy to talk about any of this later. So thanks. Yeah.
Okay, now as it happened yesterday, we have 10 minutes of break, so we have to leave and change the headphone system, because now we're gonna have Rubén Martínez audiovisual source code. So for the people who doesn't speak Spanish, it's a pity for you, because then you will have the translation, but the translation is gonna be great because Nuria and Stako is gonna be doing that. So thank you very much.